Discover the incredible secrets of how sailors found calm and sleep during stormy nights at sea. Jack knelt beside his boat, a hulking figure of rusted metal and peeling paint that seemed to sigh in response to the relentless sea air. Scraping barnacles from its hull, he stole glances at the empty seat where his father once sat, his heartbeat echoing the rhythmic thud of crashing waves against the shore. The weight of expectation hung heavily in his chest, a constant reminder of his father's fierce standards. "You're a fisherman, Jack," his father had always said. "One with the ocean." But each day felt like a reminder of his inadequacy. Could he truly uphold his family's legacy? The horizon darkened, nerves tightening in Jack's abdomen as storm clouds swirled into being, ominous and foreboding. He could feel the storm mirroring the turmoil inside him. The local tavern buzzed with fishermen sharing tales of battling the elements, but all he could focus on was the gnawing worry that he might find himself completely unworthy of the family vessel. The whispers of self-doubt wove through the salty air, taunting him as he prepared his gear. Would his father look down on him and shake his head in disappointment? Would he fail the way he feared? Just then, Captain May sauntered over, her presence electric, her laugh resonating like the crack of thunder. "You're not ready for this storm, are you?" she teased, pointing toward the horizon as though it were a living, breathing entity. Jack's gaze fell to the mug in her weathered hands. Stories of survival slipped past her lips, tales of tempests tamed and capricious waters calmed. He hung on her every word, feeling the weight in his chest begin to ease. "Listen, kid," she said, her voice low yet edged with authority, "the sea will test you. Every fisherman faces that moment. Either you'll sink, or you'll find the calm within the chaos." Her stories were no longer mere fragments. They became the foundation of his reckoning. With each lesson, he inched closer to a glimmer of hope, realizing he needed to reshape his fears into something stronger, anchored by courage. Yet as the storm approached, Jack battled against an internal tempest. No amount of wisdom could erase the feeling of being his father's shadow. Would he honor his legacy, or drown under its weight? Each crashing wave outside mirrored the chaos inside his mind, intensifying his internal conflict. He gripped the helm of his boat, trembling hands betraying the storm that brewed within. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The wind howled like a banshee, drowning out his thoughts. Jack's resolve quaked with the swell of each wave, threatening to rip the very essence of himself apart. He closed his eyes, heart racing as he stood at the threshold of his fears. Could he navigate this storm both in the world and within himself? The realization struck him. It wasn't merely the fishing he feared but the haunting legacy of his father's name. As the first wave struck without mercy, Jack faced the horizon, the darkened skies swirling with his desperation and apprehension. He was about to make a choice that would either shatter him or redefine what it meant to be a fisherman. The stakes were high, the storm was rising, and Jack was poised on the edge of becoming something more than he ever believed he could be. Rain lashed against Jack's face like icy fingers, reality settling over him as if it were another storm cloud threatening to swallow him whole. His heart raced, not from fright, but from an emerging sense of determination. The tumult around him mirrored the turmoil inside, yet now, rather than succumbing to despair, he felt a flicker of resolve igniting within. Captain May's words echoed in his mind, urging him to discover the calm buried deep beneath his fears. Standing resolutely at the helm, he visualized her stories transforming into tangible lifelines, an anchor feeding his resourceful spirit. The sea was not just an adversary, it was an opportunity to showcase what he was capable of, to show himself and perhaps the ghost of his father what it meant to navigate the wild uncertainty of the waters. With a deep breath, he grasped the wheel tighter, and the boat surged forward. Waves crashed against the hull, but for the first time, Jack felt a connection. He was more than his father's shadow. He was a vessel in his own right. he began to read the waves, their rhythm. Where once he had been fearful of their strength, he now sought to dance with them, allowing their energy to guide him instead of overwhelm him. He charted a course through the tempest, pushing himself beyond the limits he had unconsciously set. Each swell that rolled toward him was a test of his resolve, every crash of the water against the sides a challenge demanding his attention. Memories of his father surfaced, but rather than feeling crushed by them, Jack embraced them as reminders of shared passions and unwavering love for the sea. Amidst this newfound clarity, he couldn't ignore the deeper questions simmering in his mind. What lessons did he still need to learn? Who was he to become in this relentless pursuit of his legacy? With every wave, every gust of wind, Jack sought answers hidden in the chaos. The ocean had long been a crucible for his family, and now, it was his chance to forge his own path. Emerging from the spray of the sea, a sharp realization struck him. The disconnection he'd felt with the legacy of his father wasn't just about fear, it was rooted in his reluctance to embrace his own identity as a fisherman. Feeling untethered, he took a moment to reflect on what had held him back. It was a familiar sense of inadequacy paired with a fierce desire to prove himself. But Jack recognized that to truly honor his father's memory would require him to redefine what it meant to be like his father. The clouds roared above, but he saw them now as a means to confront the storm and not cower from it. He remembered Captain May's voice: find the calm within the chaos. It clicked, a strategy began to form. Instead of resisting the storm's power, he started to work with it, redirecting his boat like a seasoned sailor. As the storm reached its apex, a bolt of lightning danced across the sky, illuminating Jack's face for the briefest moment. He fully embraced this challenge, the turning point he had sought. His insight sharpened, becoming his compass, guiding choices that would define who he could become: a true sailor, not just in name but in spirit. But as he turned the wheel with newfound confidence, the boat drifted unexpectedly into a shift of currents. A dark shape emerged beneath the waves, rising ominously with purpose. Jack felt the threat pulse through the air, a visceral reminder that danger lurked just beneath the surface. The moment had come to confront not only the storm but what lay hidden in the depths. What would he find lurking in the shadows, and would he be ready to face it? The answers awaited him, tantalizing yet uncertain. The dark shape beneath the waves loomed larger, a shadow growing increasingly tangible. Jack's mind raced. Instinct pushed him to reconsider his previous confidence. This was not just some unforeseen current or obstacle on his path. It felt more like an embodiment of his own fears, a physical manifestation of everything he had fled from. With each surge of the boat, the figure became clearer, something ancient and haunting, something that could very well hold the key to his past. He tightened his grip on the wheel, tempering rising panic with the practiced breathing Captain May had taught him. Calm amidst the turmoil. He could feel the pulse of his heart in his throat, echoing the clash of waves against the hull as the boat dipped into the troughs and climbed the crests of the violent sea. "What am I doing?" he questioned, drawing strength from his breath to steady his erratic thoughts. If he was to face this entity beneath the waves, he had to embrace the courage that had begun to bloom within him, rooted in his resolve to carve out his own identity as a sailor. The moment stretched, laden with tension. Focus. The steadfast water lapping at the sides of the boat beckoned him to listen more closely, to become aware of what the disturbance might find in him. Jack peered over the edge, squinting through the sheets of rain. In the swirling darkness, glimpses flickered, fins or fingers, perhaps both. Then it hit him. Was this an opportunity to confront the truth he'd buried for too long? His father's memory loomed large, a mix of pride and disappointment. The ghostly hand of expectation reached for him, but Jack refused to be shackled by it any longer. He was determined to reclaim his narrative, to face down whatever had been blocking his path to authenticity. To navigate not only the chaos on the sea but also the chaos within himself. The monstrous shadow stirred again, and Jack's breath quickened. What if this was the ultimate test? The tales spun by generations of sailors spoke of beasts lurking in the depths, demanding courage and wisdom to confront. Maybe this was the moment where he could finally unleash the self he had always stifled. A swell shunted his boat to the side, and with a sudden jerk, Jack turned the wheel to regain control. In the blur of the tempest, half-formed thoughts pulled in his mind. He could feel his discomfort morphing into resolve. Instead of surrendering to terror, he would challenge at both the dark water below and the doubts that had dogged his steps for years. For every shadow that lurked beneath him, he would cultivate a brighter potential above. With adrenaline coursing through him, he mustered the last of his concentration, steering into the storm's heart rather than away from it. As the shadow glided into full view, revealing a massive shape gleaming with a silvery sheen, it reshaped the narrative he clung to. This was no mere monster. It was a guardian of the depths, an emblem of everything he had yet to face. Jack's heart thundered with fateful anticipation as the water erupted around him, the truth swirling like the currents that hugged the shape. Was he ready to discover what lay in the depths, not just among the tangible but within himself? He felt the wheel vibrate in his hands, a connection binding him to this new reality he was leaning toward. Suddenly, a surge of recognition clarified in his soul. He had begun embracing his journey as a sailor, not just as a vessel of his father's dreams but as an architect of his own destiny. In that moment, Jack understood the call of the ocean was both a challenge and a revelation, a dance between fear and the unknown that beckoned him. The wind howled louder, demanding his focus, but he welcomed its ferocity. "This is my reality now," Jack declared, his voice drowned out by the storm yet bold in his own heart. As the tide surged up around him, Jack felt something shift deep inside, a decision coalescing like the energy from the ocean. The time had come to face what loomed before him, but it was not just the physical threat he had to contend with. What secrets would the ocean reveal about himself as he plunged deeper into this transformative encounter? Each moment demanded that he confront not just the water but the man he was becoming. He braced himself both for the clash ahead and for what lay in wait beneath the surface, a threshold between who he was and who he would finally become. The ocean roared with relentless fury, the waves crashing against the boat in a cacophony that mirrored the tempest in Jack's mind. As he steered forward, he felt an urgency build within him. The uncertainty that had once crippled him was now a catalyst for action. This wasn't merely about confronting the shadow prowling beneath the surface. It was also about confronting the doubts that lurked within his heart. He closed his eyes briefly, allowing the chaotic sounds of the storm to wash over him, seeking clarity amidst the turmoil. Beneath the chaos of the raging sea, a whisper of courage began to rise. Jack knew the real tempest was not the one above but the one within, the storm of expectations, fears, and aspirations colliding as violently as the waves around him. In that moment of stillness, he realized that he had allowed himself to be defined by his father's legacy for too long. With the silhouette of the creature submerged in the depths both terrifying and awe-inspiring, Jack felt a profound shift within. He no longer wanted to merely navigate life under the shadow of someone else's ambitions. His destiny was not just about survival amidst the storms. It was about actively charting his course. The boat rocked violently, and Jack's grip on the wheel tightened. He forced his thoughts to the present. He was alone at sea, a test of endurance and will. Each breaching wave seemed to question him, daring him to acknowledge his past while beckoning him toward a future he had yet to grasp fully. What if this creature, this embodiment of fear and legacy, held the secret to his liberation? Realization sparked in his mind. The ocean was a metaphor, reflecting the depths of his soul. Just as he was learning to read the moods of the water, he needed to interpret the turbulence within. He must confront not only the monstrosity below but also the weight of expectation above him, which had pushed him throughout his life. The shadow re-emerged, larger now, making clear its form, a creature like none he had ever encountered, a rhythmic undulation as stunning as it was daunting. It was not just a guardian of the depths. It represented his own trials and the potential for transformation that lay in acceptance and facing his fears head-on. His father's legacy was nothing more than a narrative that he had unknowingly internalized, shaping his decisions and coloring his dreams with constraints he didn't even realize he had accepted. Jack's heart raced as he contemplated this realization. Embracing his legacy did not mean surrendering to it. He could be the architect of his journey, carving his identity at sea. Inasmuch as he had feared failing his father, he now understood that true failure lay in not pursuing his own dreams. The storm reached a crescendo, and Jack shouted into the wind, "I will not be defined by your shadow any longer." The declaration felt powerful, reverberating through the chaos and momentarily silencing the raging winds. He could feel the tides around him shifting, an opportunity unfolding, but the question remained, how would he navigate this newfound resolve amidst the tumult? The waves crashed once more, but each surge felt less imposing now, as if the ocean acknowledged his claim to autonomy. Jack tightened his grip and prepared to face the creature and himself. As the shadow surged closer, Jack's thoughts aligned with purpose. He was ready to confront not just the being beneath the surface but the embodiment of fear that had driven him, fear of failure, of disappointing others, of being lost. His awareness crystallized. To tame the depths, he must first tame the storm within. And as he took a deep breath, a new fear emerged, mingled with excitement. What if the depths revealed parts of himself he had yet to discover? What if the creature was not predatory but protective, waiting to unveil latent strengths within him? The moment teetered on the edge of revelation and dread, and Jack faced that very precipice, eyes wide open, heart daring to leap into uncertainty as the tempest howled around him. What transformation awaited him in the depths? As the creature glided closer, threatening to breach, Jack felt the thrill of the unknown rush through his veins. He would dive into the heart of uncertainty and embrace whatever truths lay ahead, be they unveiling hidden talents or confronting the remnants of his father's dreams. All he had to do was choose to dive deep. The ocean surged below Jack, a cacophony of sounds swelling around him as he braced himself for the confrontation to come. The shadow of the creature loomed larger, moving with elegance but an undeniable ferocity. Jack gripped the wheel tighter, breath rushing in and out of his lungs like the very waves that surrounded him. This was not just a battle with the beast, it was a reckoning with himself. In those frantic moments before impact, he reflected on years spent tethered to the expectations of others. His father's dreams wrapped around him like chains, forging a path draped in obligation rather than inspiration. This was his moment, an opportunity to redefine the narrative he had been told both by his father and himself. He was more than a son who followed in a legacy. He was Jack, a man capable of steering his own ship. As the creature emerged in full view, the hue of its scales glimmered with iridescent blues and greens, capturing the light of the storm as flashes. With each pulse, it swayed gracefully yet ominously. Jack felt a knot twist in his gut. Was it truly a monster, or had he misjudged its intentions all along? Perhaps what he perceived as a foe was merely a manifestation of his internal struggle, his failure to embrace autonomy. Jack's heart raced at the thought. The resolve that had built within him was not just the determination to confront a physical opponent. He was challenged to face the very essence of fear embodied by the creature. Amidst the chaos of the storm, he found a steadiness in his resolve. This was about claiming his narrative. Suddenly, the waves surged upwards and crashed towards him, an avalanche of salt water and uncertainty. He maneuvered the boat, steering into the swell instead of away from it, mirroring the inner conflict boiling within. The tumult was relentless, but with each wave, he felt an overwhelming urgency to confront what was beneath the surface, not just the creature, but the much more formidable beast of self-doubt and regret. As the creature breached the surface with a great splash, Jack found himself staring deep into its otherworldly eyes. He sensed something in those depths, a flicker of understanding, a glint of recognition. Within that gaze lay a shared essence, a truth and interconnectedness he had never acknowledged before. To face this creature was not simply to battle a monstrous legacy but to integrate the parts of himself that he had long dismissed or ignored. "Show me what you represent," Jack shouted into the storm, voice resolute. The words came from a place deep within, a calling for understanding, not hostility. He did not want to fight the creature, he wanted to understand it, to learn from it. As the tempest raged, the depths below stirred in response. The creature circled the boat, its rhythm echoing the rising and falling of Jack's own heart. He reached for the railing, allowing the water to wash over his hands, feeling the raw, untamed energy of the ocean seep into his very being. What if the depths were not a threat, but an invitation to dive deeper into his own psyche? Jack took a moment, pulling his thoughts inward. He reflected on his skills, the abilities nurtured by years of navigating this perilous sea. He had the instincts to read the currents, and whether to understand when to push forward and when to retreat. Could these very attributes guide him through the storm within? As the creature glided closer still, Jack felt a melding, a simmering strength. He would not turn away from this challenge. Instead, he embraced it. What lay ahead could be transformative. He just needed to plunge forward, both into the depths of the ocean and into the recesses of his mind. Water splashed against the hull as he prepared for the leap. The moment hummed with electric potential, teetering between fear and exhilaration. All at once, he was ready to accept whatever truths awaited him just beneath the surface. No longer was he merely navigating the wild seas. Now, he was ready to explore the vastness of himself, what awaited him beyond the waves. The thought hung heavy in the air, a tantalizing mystery that pulsed with the promise of revelation. Would he find clarity in the depths, or would he be swallowed whole by the fear that had held him captive for so long? The cusp of transformation buzzed in the storm, and Jack was poised to dive. The world around Jack blurred into a whirlwind of sound and fury as he steadied himself. The boat rocked violently beneath him, the primal energy of the ocean surging in tandem with his rising determination. How many times had he felt as small and insignificant as he did now? How many times had he allowed fear to dictate his actions, tethering himself to an existence shaped by expectations rather than desires? With a deep breath, Jack pulled his attention from the howling winds and focused on the creature instead, its massive form now mere feet away. It loomed like a reflection of his own internal struggle. The gleam in its eyes suggested an unspoken bond, an untapped potential that both intrigued and terrified him. If he was to make sense of this encounter, he needed to access the instinctual knowledge he had honed over years on these waters. He had to confront the beast not as an adversary, but as an embodiment of his own fears. As the boat rocked wildly, Jack leveled his gaze. If he was going to leap, he needed to commit wholeheartedly. No half measures. A sense of readiness surged through his veins. He could do this not just for himself, but for all the parts of him that had been muted. He wanted to strip back layers of doubt and regret like so many barnacles clinging to the hull of a ship. Adrenaline pulsed in his core as he moved. With every breach of the wave, he approached the edge of the vessel. "What do you want from me?" he yelled again, the ocean roaring in response. Uncertainty gnawed at him, shadows of his late father's voice echoing in his mind. "You are not good enough." But this was his moment, a culmination of all he had endured and all he could yet become. The creature splashed, droplets flying like shards of glass. In a moment of clarity, he realized his focus should shift from fear of the unknown to the possibilities of self-discovery. The monster might not just symbolize the worst of him, it could also hold the map to his potential. With one final deep breath, he closed his eyes, letting the world around him fade. He had to dive not only into the depths of the ocean, but into the depths of his own psyche. Solemnly, he rolled into the frigid abyss. The shock of the cold enveloped him, yet he found clarity in the darkness. The water carried him deeper, and with each passing second, he felt a weight lifting. All the anxieties, the labeling, the expectations drifted away. His mind swelled with the unfettered truths he'd avoided for too long. Jack's lungs screamed for air, but he wasn't afraid. He concentrated on the signs around him, the language of the ocean swirling in his consciousness. Suddenly, the depths below lit up with bioluminescence. In this shimmering world, he wasn't just a sailor, he was a seeker. Tendrils of fear faded, revealing whispers of wisdom that brushed against his mind like siren songs. The presence of the creature surged toward him, and an exhilarating rush cascaded through Jack's very being. Was it beckoning him? What awaited him in these depths? Knowledge, power, or perhaps a darker truth? As he swam deeper, a flicker of uncertainty crept in. Was this plunge truly an exploration, or was it a spiraling descent into chaos? The currents swirled violently as he grappled with the choice ahead. Would he emerge with a newfound strength to shape his own destiny, or would the journey unveil truths too terrifying to bear? The stakes had risen dramatically, drawing Jack into a confrontation not just with the creature, but with the very essence of himself. Close to the light beneath the waves, he understood, this was only the beginning. The ocean held secrets, and so did he. What awaited him in the flickering depths? Would he find the courage to harness what lay hidden, or would he succumb to the very fears he sought to conquer? The undulating current was a living reminder that change was not far off, and Jack was ready to discover just how deep the currents of his own soul ran. The chill enveloped Jack's body as he sank deeper into the ocean's embrace, but it was not just the water that chilled him. It was the confrontation with himself that struck a chilling note in the symphony of his being. Each pulsating wave that coursed through his lungs reminded him of every moment he had ever felt inadequate, every time he had tethered his dreams to the dock of fear and self-doubt. As the bioluminescent glow flickered around him, shadows danced in the periphery, embodying the weight of past failures and the pressure to conform. But amid the swirling darkness, a flicker of light sparked within. The courage he sought was already there, mirrored in the shimmering tableau before him. He realized that fear had never been his only companion. Strength had been quietly waiting to rise. Reframing the creature's looming silhouette, Jack began to perceive it as a mentor rather than a foe. The eyes of the beast reflected not just threats but possibilities. He felt his heartbeat synchronize with the rhythm of the ocean, urging him to confront what he had long buried: his resentment, his anger, his failures. Every piece of him that felt fractured suddenly coalesced into a whisper of empowerment. This dive was not merely a journey into the depths of the sea but an exploration of the depths of his spirit. In that ethereal moment, he momentarily grasped an understanding as elusive as the currents of who he could be. Jack envisioned a life free from the oppressive expectations, unbound from the chains of regret and inadequacy. What if the sea was not merely a vessel for his dreams but also a forge for his rebirth? The idea ignited a frenzied energy within him. With renewed resolve, he swam deeper, navigating the glowing trails that seemed to beckon him forward. With each push of his arms, he excised morsels of doubt that had long been paralyzing. He envisioned his father's voice, echoing in the vastness of the ocean around him, transforming from a source of shame to a ghost of motivation. Jack imagined the words shifting, morphing into something tangible. Instead of, "You are not good enough," he now heard, "You have the power to be more than they ever saw." The currents swelled with every stroke, a tidal wave of liberation pushing him to embrace the knowledge buried in his past failures. As Jack surrendered to the depths, he began to perceive the subtleties of his hidden competencies: the intuition that had guided him at sea, the resilience that carried him through storms, and the creativity that sparked his designs for life beyond the horizon. The ocean's language unfolded before him, intricate and inviting. There was no need for aggression, only the understanding that he possessed the ability to navigate his fears as well as these waters. Emerging at last into a pocket of serenity, the ambience shifted. The creature materialized beside him, its massive form just an arm's length away. In that moment, Jack sensed a connection blossoming, in acknowledgement that he was neither master nor servant, but an equal explorer alongside this majestic being of the deep. He extended his hand, not in aggression, but in request for partnership, for guidance. But the creature hesitated, its wisdom palpable beneath the surface tension. It swirled away, shimmering as if challenging Jack to prove his readiness to seize his own destiny. "Am I ready?" he questioned himself, staring into the creature's profound depths. "Have I fought hard enough for my own truth?" The true challenge erupted. Now, the confrontation was no longer solely with the creature. It was with the very essence of who Jack believed himself to be. What awaited him next: the wisdom of the depths or the uncharted territory of his psyche? A shift in momentum beckoned as currents of opportunity swirled around him. Ahead lay choices, potent and brimming with significance. Would he collapse under the weight of expectation once more, or would he forge a new identity from the storm rising within? The currents whispered promises of transformation, but would he have the audacity to take the leap? The creature's shimmering form began to dissolve into the depths, leaving only the faintest trace of luminescence behind. Jack's heart raced as he realized this was the moment of truth, the threshold between who he had been and who he could become. The chill surrounding him morphed into an electrifying current, heightening his senses and making each fiber of his being buzz with anticipation. He kicked off the sandy ocean floor with renewed determination, propelled by the visceral desire to confront the unknown. Jack's thoughts ricocheted as he pushed against the waves, grappling not only with the physical challenges of swimming deeper but also with the emotional tides within him. What did it mean to be ready? Did readiness lie in an absence of fear, or was it about pushing through it, armed with the knowledge that he had a right to claim his path? How many times had he allowed himself to be swept away by expectations, trapped within the stormy obstacles of his past? He became acutely aware of the contrasting sensations. The striking beauty of the deep contrasted sharply with the echoes of his doubts. He could feel the weight of his past failures gathering like dark clouds around him, yet the flickers of possibility ignited something else entirely. The question loomed larger: could he rewrite the narrative that had long dictated his self-worth? Pushing forward through the currents, he envisioned the various facets of himself that he had kept hidden: the skilled sailor who had weathered countless tempests, the resilient dreamer who had crafted elaborate designs on paper, and the compassionate friend who understood the power of connection. Each of these identities surged forth as he swam, filling him with a sense of empowerment that dispelled the icy grip of fear. Jack's lungs screamed for air, yet he welcomed the discomfort as a reminder of his humanity, of the living pulse that beat strong within. He floated momentarily, suspended in water, discerning shapes emerging from the depths, vibrant and alive. This was his moment of confrontation, a reflection of every doubt, every expectation that had held him captive. "Who are you, Jack?" he whispered, tasting the salty waters as if they could wash away the answers that lay buried deep within. The water rippled in response, resonating with his internal chaos. "You've followed the rules for too long. Isn't it time to create your own?" The tides appeared to beckon him, the ocean transforming into a mirror of his psyche. He swam boldly into an underwater cavern, the bioluminescent glow illuminating his path. Shadows morphed into familiar faces: his father, peers, those who had ever doubted him. Instead of recoiling from them, Jack began to navigate through this intimate landscape. Each stroke became intentional, slicing through years of resentment and self-loathing. Decisions cascaded through his mind as he reached the heart of the cavern, where the water glowed a mesmerizing blue, almost coaxing him to dive further into its mysteries. The weight of his choices pressed down on him, yet something within whispered of liberation. Would he allow himself to disconnect from the expectations that had formed his identity for so long? "I can choose differently," he muttered under the surface, the mantra breaking through the noise of his apprehension. The realization crystallized with acute clarity: a new identity was waiting, one that embraced not only the triumphs but also the failures he had incurred along the way. Just when he thought he could consolidate these revelations, a fierce current surged around him. Jack braced against the force, eyes wide, heart pounding in excitement and fear. He had initiated his transformation, yet he was not alone. The creature reemerged, its gaze asking what the next act would be. "Will you let the tides of possibility carry you?" it seemed to ask, the challenge resonating through the water. As the cavern echoed with anticipation, Jack understood that he stood at the edge of another decision. Would he dive deeper into the unknown, or retreat back into the safety of his memories? Now, with the current howling its demands, Jack faced the ultimate turning point. The question loomed: was he ready to embrace his new identity and venture into the uncertain depths that lay ahead? The storm within him roared, insistent, as the final push awaited, urging him to plunge anew. The moment hung thick in the water, bordering on suffocating, as Jack weighed the weight of his choices against the swirling chaos of his emotions. The creature waited, its luminous form a reminder of the unseen potential within him. He could either allow the tide to sweep him away into the abyss or navigate the unpredictable waters to emerge transformed. Instinctively, Jack braced himself, feeling the pulse of the ocean echoing his own heartbeat. He was being tested, and the stakes felt higher than ever. The uncertainty of the cavern's depths beckoned him to discover a strength he had long suppressed. With a deep breath that filled his lungs with salty air, he surged forward, propelled by an inner force that ignited the flickering embers of his resolve. As he dove deeper, the luminous blue light intensified, enveloping him in an ethereal embrace. The surroundings morphed into a living tapestry of colors, shifting like the emotional landscapes within him, swirling blues of fear, vibrant yellows of hope, muted grays of doubt. Each wave that crashed against him carried a whisper of clarity, reminding Jack that growth often emerged from turmoil. In this surreal environment, Jack faced the faces that haunted him within the shadows. They were less threatening now, but still powerful. His father's gaze held disappointment, peers looked on with skepticism, and the nagging voices of self-doubt echoed around him. He couldn't escape them. They were a part of him, embedded in his psyche as remnants of old narratives. Face them head on, he murmured, swimming with purpose. You define your story? Each word felt like a ripple, scattering the lingering fog of expectation. With each stroke, he confronted memories that loomed large, recalling moments that had shaped his misguided belief of unworthiness. There were times he had faltered, dreams he'd abandoned, and opportunities he'd passed by due to anxiety or fear of failure. Yet now, those very memories, once shackles to his progress, transformed into stepping stones toward reclaiming his self-esteem. Just as the initial thrill of the chase bolstered his spirit, doubt crept back, slinking through his thoughts like a shadow determined to reclaim dominance. What if you fail again? It hissed. The current surged stronger, triggering a fight-or-flight response that thrummed at his core. But Jack pushed back against the struggling current, galvanizing the persona he envisioned: a sailor, resilient and steadfast against the harshest elements. I've learned from every misstep, he declared, his voice steady despite the tinges of uncertainty echoing through him. I've weathered the storm, and now I will chart my course. The cavern shifted, reflecting his resolve. The depths ahead opened into a broader expanse, revealing a myriad of paths yet unexplored. One path shimmered with radiant lights, inviting him in. Another was shadowed but sturdy enough to navigate. This next decision would define the course of his journey. Would it be the embrace of uncertainties with the light of potential, or the familiar territory of past fears? Jack paused, suspended between choice and consequence, heart racing anew at the duality of adventure and anxiety washing over him. Suddenly, realization struck like a thunderbolt. Who he was could no longer be dictated by those figures of the past. Every choice made from now on was rooted in acknowledgement of self-imperfections, struggles, and all. The urgency of this decision gripped him. He could feel the tides pushing against him, a pull toward safety, or a call to grandeur. As he took a deep breath, he had to choose. Would he lean into the shimmer of the unknown or retreat into the softened embrace of familiarity? With resolve swelling in his chest, Jack edged toward the inviting glow, understanding that with every step, every stroke, he was defining the sailor he intended to become. But as he moved closer, a sudden rumble echoed through the cavern, shaking the very foundation of his newfound courage. The question surged deep within him, in the pursuit of his transformation: what ramifications would emerge from the depths? Would the waters accept him, or would he encounter a tempest unlike any other? The swirling currents of uncertainty wrapped tightly around Jack as he moved deeper into the shimmering glow, beckoning him forward. The moment felt electric, saturating him with the weight of his ambition and fears intertwined. As shadows flickered and danced along the walls of the cavern, he faced the monumental choice standing before him, which was as undeniable as the raw power of the ocean itself. This time, however, Jack did not let fear conquer him. The paradigm had shifted, and it was as if the cave had breathed a sigh of understanding along with him. With each stroke toward the radiant path, he drew closer not only to the mystery beneath the surface but also to the truth of who he would choose to become. The doubts that had haunted him morphed into guiding lights instead of anchors, flickering comforts in the darkness. I choose to be myself, he declared, the words cascading out like an unbroken wave. He was more than just a fisherman. He was Jack, a man ready to write his own narrative. Doubt and despair had been relentless adversaries, but resilience and courage now surged beneath his skin like the currents of the ocean itself. He understood he could honor his father's legacy not through bound servitude, but through authentic self-expression. With newfound clarity, he pressed on toward the luminous expanse ahead, embracing all facets of his identity: the aspiring sailor, the grieving son, the daring dreamer. Each identity held the key to navigating the complexities of his journey, as they braided together like cords forming a steadfast line. As he crossed the threshold into the wider expanse illuminated by that internal glow, something extraordinary happened. The currents swirled around him, buoying his spirit, gifting him visions of moments previously stifled. He could see himself at sea, not as his father had envisioned but as he had desired, a master of his craft, commanding waves with skill and passion, pushing boundaries that had long held him back. The creature surfaced once more, a majestic guardian now riding the tides of Jack's determined spirit. Instead of a rival, it felt akin to a mentor. A beacon of potential, reflecting the very courage Jack had cultivated within. They locked eyes, and in that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Both were conquerors of their respective storms. Jack felt a warm rush enveloping him, a surprising embrace of solidarity that embraced past fears while gifting him with the knowledge of how to face them. He realized the creature was a reflection of every challenge he had faced, an anxiously swirling legacy, the burden of expectations, and the fear of failure. The sea had not only been a pathway to healing but a mirror revealing depth within him. With adrenaline coursing, Jack ascended back upward toward the surface, and with each swift kick, remnants of self-doubt washed away. Reaching the surface, he broke through, gasping for the air that tasted sweet with liberation, newfound purpose, and the unyielding drive to forge his own path. The storm above had calmed, but the thrill of triumph surged within him. As he steadied himself on his boat, Jack glanced once more at the horizon. The sun broke through, casting a golden hue across the water, and he felt the glow of confidence and assurance. He was not merely navigating waves, he was defining his own journey. The memories of his father transformed from oppressive shadows into guiding stars, strong reminders that the legacy of love and tenacity lived within him, ready to drive him forward. Understanding now that he could carve his own destiny, Jack set the sails with conviction. Each knot tied became a testament to his resilience, each wave captured an echo of his hard-earned growth. He was more than the son of a fisherman, he was a captain of his own fate, tethered to the powerful ocean, but resolutely free in his choices. And as he navigated into the open water, the horizon unfurled before him, pregnant with opportunity. Jack had stepped into a new world, one where self-doubt held no sway against the buoyant dreams of a man ready to embrace the sea as both adversary and ally. He had proven to himself that he could conquer storms, harnessing not just the tide, but the winds of change, each leading toward an authentic legacy built upon his identity. With one last look back at the waters that had tested him, he smiled. The storm once haunting him had become a tale of transformation, a story of a young sailor reclaiming his name. A story that awaited to be told, woven into the fabric of each sunrise over the vast horizon. Now, it's time for you to take action. You need to subscribe now to our channel if you want to continue exploring these exclusive emotional journeys that empower personal transformation. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and help others discover Jack's courageous story. Comment below your reactions and theories on this powerful conclusion, because your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspirational tale of overcoming fear and embracing personal growth.